Isn't it beautiful? You noticed that there's no shame in nature. There's just an understanding. I wonder why, or maybe how, it's become so acceptable to shame. Kids are taught shame by parents, by other kids, teachers, even counselors. I don't know that people understand how shame affects the people that might enjoy shaming. I don't know if people understand the effects of shame that they've felt or been subject to. Sometimes, maybe until it's too late, or much later in life. Sometimes you'll find someone who was brought up in a family it was really just image, and you're raised tolerate shame and in turn be selfless. same family don't have to feel that shame. On the scale that maybe you do. How different the lives of those children turn out to be. Maybe one can't seem to do anything wrong. Does well for themselves, goes to college, builds a life, a big home in a paradise of their own. Loved by everyone they meet. And admired. And I wonder if this makes it easier to be successful. They believe they know who they are. They're confident. They hold confidence. They are able to be funny. And hold conversations. Such flow. And I wonder what it is that they feel that they're missing in their life, if anything. And they have everything. Or seemingly so on the outside. Who always knew that they were wrong for some reason, and they couldn't figure it out, and it caused them confusion. They had incredible difficulty focusing, and they didn't understand why, because defend themselves. And so they might find anger for the other sibling in those confusing years. I don't know why they're so mad at him. But what it comes down to is the projection of shame from a parent who experienced the same thing and never processed that in a healthy way, and instead took that and used it as determination to be better than the parent that did that to them. Whose parent also did that to them. A perpetuating cycle of ancestral shame. So back to the, let's say, black sheep of the family. Black sheep doesn't understand that they carry this ancestral burden. They don't understand themselves because they had to learn how to adapt to appease the parent. And occasionally breadcrumbed, but always on their toes, and knowing anxiety on a level that no child should ever have to know. Causing them to be a people pleaser. And grow up to be one. The inability to be able to process the self, the emotions, and understand. It causes a person to find different ways to be who they need to be for everyone else. And eventually you lose your identity and you put on all these masks, try on all these different things to find that love, because you might not realize it as a child or even a young adult, but later on in your adult years, you realize how many years it has been since you felt truly loved without having to perform. You end up not doing well in school because you can't focus, because you're so insecure and battling bullying and torment at school through your school years. Taking your attention away from what matters most. Not even knowing what is happening. The dynamics playing out to be able to call it out. You only know how to survive. And so survival becomes your life talent. Rather than being able to acknowledge or even know what your purpose is, or who you are. And it's not your fault. It's not your fault. You did the best that you could do with what you knew. Absolutely didn't mean to rhyme. Funny that the clouds darkened and then picked up at that moment. So you do things that you think you are supposed to do and barely achieve them along the way. that you're behind your maybe peers or siblings at that age or around that age. And so you feel the pressure to perform or buy a house that you have no idea how to deal with. It can't be that hard, right? And you might be able to maintain that for years or even decades until it's taken away from you for some reason. Because your inability to maintain conflict is used against you, weaponized by a spouse. And their projections are weaponized. Shame. To put you into submission. There's not a damn thing you can do. Your perceived weakness as it's projected onto you is used by everyone that is supposed to have your back, like therapists, doctors, lawyers, judges, eventually you start realizing you can't do that anymore. There's something wrong. You can't see it the way you've been seeing it. But you've never been able to be yourself, so you don't know how to even trust yourself. With what you want, even simple decisions, with what you want to do with your life. The friends that you have had for years, or the friends that you've trusted and maybe had your back until you realize that every one of these friends aren't really your friends. And are willing to hurt you with weaponized shame in order to save their own egos. once you start to learn to hold boundaries, you're not good at it. Maybe. Certainly not confident. So maybe it's not believable. Plus the insecurity. And once you start holding boundaries, you're discarded. And later down the road, you realize that you surrounded yourself with this because it's all you knew how to do. You only knew how to be there selflessly. And if you made a mistake, it was definitely amplified. You make a lot of mistakes just trying to do the right thing. And just trying to be loved for who you are. And that realizing it doesn't seem that anyone around you can really truly love you for who you are. That is a scary knowing. Because now you're on your own. You just still don't know who you are. Or what you want to do with yourself. Try everything. All the different ways to heal. Therapy, knowledge seeking, spiritual seeking, meditation. There really isn't a profound peace. That you found even after all the traumas that you can name and identified as your roots. And you're shamed into just forgive. Just let it go. Just forgive. Just think positive. Oh, I'm so lucky. But you don't know how to think positive. Because you've never been allowed to be your truest self. In all the years you try to be someone else, with different identities and diets. I guess I don't mean as in weight loss. You don't know how to love yourself because you were never truly loved for who you were. And you find yourself jealous because people have traumas that wake them up and ground them in the right direction, and you've experienced dehumanization on levels that most people probably never have to really know. And it's all rooted in shame. Not one seed planted. And then you find yourself later on in life maybe finding yourself in the same patterns, even though you're sure that you'd never let yourself fall into ever again, because you know, you're aware. But somehow that shame sneaks its way back in. It brings you to your knees. I used to wear the moniker of black sheep of the family as a humorous way to describe myself, to laugh it off, give the impression that I maybe outgrew it or overcame it in some sense. I never realized that black sheep of the family is actually unhealthy, harmful. I didn't realize that there's a label for it in the psychology world. It's called scapegoating. The scapegoat moniker has been minimalized as if maybe not to be taken seriously. When you hear the term scapegoat, I wonder why it hasn't been acknowledged until now, or recent years. Maybe because it's supposed to grow up, be an adult. But how can you if you're never given the tools or never knew how to love yourself? Maybe you went through a phase of smoking. Maybe you went through a phase of drinking. Maybe you went through a phase of eating out all the time as a young adult because this is my life and I'm going to do it my way. Maybe you'll pay for that later. And it wasn't your fault in the first place. I'm going to do a better job of loving myself. Even more than I have these last few years. And hopefully I can find myself